Hi, Shemai, Setahi, Croesoe, Chris, Dewey, what is cracking, boys, girls, ladies, and gents? Today we're talking about the Shabutanti Hills. It's a sorcery book. It's a fighting fantasy sorcery book written by Steve Jackson, and this bad boy is quite special because this is going to be the 10th fighting fantasy book I've talked about on this channel, which is it's pretty cheeky, you know, because I can't even remember when I started, but probably like 10 weeks ago. But yeah, the first book I did was Caverns of the Snow Witch, and I didn't really expect to enjoy making videos at all. Didn't think I'd enjoy it, but now I do. I'm kind of looking at, well, I've read this book, what am I on about? But now I'm just thinking about getting better editing software, so yeah. But, like I said, we are talking about the Shabutanti Hills. It's the first sorcery book out of 4. And in all honesty, it's really good. But let's give you a brief rundown. So this book was published back in '83 by Puffin, and then it follows the same sort of release schedule, whereas the early '80s by Puffin, early 2000s by Wizards, and then late 2010s then by Scholastic. And like I said, you know, this is the first book in the sorcery series, so there's 4. This being the first one, what you're going to find if you read it, you don't actually complete your quest in this book. Lo and behold, it's a big old quest that you're actually on, and I don't mind. That was really fun, to be honest, because a lot of the other books, they have you going out and collecting dozens upon dozens of items. This one, well, I didn't feel like I needed to collect anything. I just sort of meandered my way through the lands and found myself at this random village and just sort of completed the game, and it's pretty good, to be honest, and I like the characters. But if you're sat there wondering, well, should I get this book? What I'm going to say is, yes, but I am going to tell you why. I am going to give you a brief, too long didn't read, about why you should get this book. So without further ado, well, let's get into that then. Let's go. So why should you get this book? Why should you, the humble viewer, get this book? Well, why you should get this book is, quite honestly, it's just really good. It is really good. Whereas the other ones, like I said, have you collecting stupid amounts of items, or they have these stupid convoluted mazes, like just to fill out the book. This one doesn't. You're just constantly doing something, and whether or not you're going up into the hills, down into the valleys, choosing whether or not you want to camp out for the night, choosing whether or not you want to take this path, that village or this village, there's a lot of choices that you make. It always feels as if you're interacting with the world with this one, and that's really good. But I haven't mentioned my absolute favourite part of the book, and it has to be the little spell book right at the back, because what you have to do, you have to memorise as many spells as humanly possible, because you have the option then of just casting rando spells in different scenarios. So what spell do I actually enjoy? To be brutally honest, I like Dumb, and it's DUM, and you cast it, and the monster is, you just turn him into a pleb. You turn him into a smooth brain, or you can cast Big, Walk, Raz, Sus. I like Sus, you know, it's that's a bit sus. It's basically if you're suspicious. It's just a really nice little detail. I remember back when I used to read this book, I had this book before when I was like, when was it, 2006, 2005, and I used to just read through the spell books. So I like looking at the pictures, it's really cool. But without further ado, why else should you get this book? Because quite frankly, the artwork is actually really good. If you're looking at the previous editions, not to hate on Scholastic, I just can't, I am under the impression that they've probably modernised all the artwork. With the older artwork, what you've got is some of that, if you like Warhammer, if you remember the Rogue Trader era, or if you weren't alive back then and you can look back to the Rogue Trader era, you've got some of that classic fantasy art style right throughout the book. It's amazing. There's a village, and when I saw it, I was like, damn, this is a Nurgle village. But it wasn't a Nurgle village. And I was slightly disappointed, but I was happy to have seen it, you know. Should we talk about the monsters? The monsters are really cool. The final boss fight is actually pretty tough. It's not one of those ones where you just get item checked. It's legit just a boss fight where the thing can beat you up really quickly. And I like that personally. You got a lot of interactions with NPCs who will give you very good hints as to where you should go, where you shouldn't go, what you should do, what you should avoid. And all in all, the world in the Shabutanti Hills feels very organic. And that's something that sometimes the other books miss. So yeah, if you ask me, should you get this book? I'm going to say yeah. Definitely get this book. It doesn't really matter if you get the Scholastic version or the previous editions. You know, the artwork will be different, but the story is still fantastic. So, So yeah, I think just to what was this? Split this video up between the too long didn't read and the actual review. Let's look at some of these old covers then. Let's go. So if we're looking at the Puffin covers, what you're going to see is that although they have a different banner, they have multiple different banners, the artwork tends not to change. And it's basically of the Manticore. It's just the Manticore, just sort of vibing. He looks very sad. I personally, yeah, it's just not... The artwork looks a bit weird, in my opinion. It hasn't got the same vibes as the other Puffin ones do. They've got that classical, like, fantasy kind of art, but this one just sort of is what it is. You got the Manticore, sort of looks like Brian Blessed, sort of screaming into the sky. So yeah, this cover, it's not amazing. It's probably the weakest one, in my opinion. I feel sorry for the guys that had to read these back in the 80s with this cover, because this cover is quite weak. But without further ado, let's talk about the Cheeky Wizards cover. So let's go. So we got a Wizards cover, and it is the Manticore again. The Manticore looks actually quite intimidating. This one, there is a corpse directly in front of him, showing that he eats people, or she. It could be a Womanticore, who knows. This cover's actually pretty good, to be honest. It's one of the better ones. It sets the scene quite well. I think the Manticore actually looks quite scary in this one. You've got the Manticore, which is obviously a Manticore. You can see the scorpion tail in the background, and he's just sort of stood there amongst skulls and gore. It's pretty good, to be honest. I really like the Wizards one. This is the one I grew up with, so I am going to be biased. It is the same old thing once again. Well, is it? Because sometimes I prefer the other covers. Who knows? But so yeah, let's briefly touch on the Scholastic version. So let's go. So the Scholastic version, as you can see, it's red. You got a Manticore, and that's about it. To be honest, there's not a whole lot you can say about the cover. The Manticore just looks like a lion. You can't actually. It's not. So I'm gonna say this right now. I don't really like the Scholastic cover either. You know, sometimes they are very hit and miss with Scholastic. A lot of the times lately, they've been doing really well. You know, they've been pumping out really cool covers. But with this one, it's sort of mediocre. You'd think for the Sorcery series, they'd put full arts, but no. I'm looking at the minimalistic, red background, circle with the Manticore in, yellow right then. It's alright, like, but, you know, it's not going to matter. What matters is what's inside the book, obviously. I am just judging books by the cover. But, I don't know. I don't really like this cover. It's not my cup of tea. So if I had to rate these covers in order, obviously it would go probably Wizards first, Scholastic second, Puffin third. You know, second and third probably tied for just being both third, and then just have Wizards first and second. I don't know. It is what it is. I only really like the Wizards cover in this one. And it sucks because I know the second Sorcery book has good covers all around. So it is what it is. So without further ado, let's talk about the actual story. Let's go into it with a bit more depth. And before I actually talk about the story in depth, in the background you're watching some Minecraft gameplay. Yeah, I stuck with the little village I found. Well, I stuck with my initial village, and I've just started adding stuff onto it. It has improved, as you can see in the gameplay. It is what it is. I'm sort of trying to expand, build like a little coastal town, so I can go fishing whenever. It is all wholesome. It is wholesome. I'm just sort of building a town at this point. So let's actually get into the review. So I don't really know how to do this, so I'm just going to read the back. It says, based on the best-selling Final Fantasy gamebook system, the Shabutanti Hills is book 1 in Steve Jackson's Sorcery series. Your epic quest will take you across the mysterious hills to the city port of Kar, but only if you outwit the creatures, traps, and wizardry you encounter along the way. Play as either a warrior or as a wizard. If you choose wizardry, your survival will depend on your knowledge of the sorcery spellbook's darkest secrets. With many other unique features to discover, Sorceries is a true challenge for a novice and veteran adventurers alike. So that's about it, boys and girls. That is it sums it up really well, to be honest, because you can play as a sorcerer or a warrior. You don't have to use magic. And that is something I found really cool, because what you're going to find out is there's a mini-mate called Jan. Now, I thought Jan was a woman, but no, it's a fella who just sort of sits on your shoulder. You can't get rid of them, but they sit on your shoulder and you can't use magic. So I was kind of forced into being a warrior. To be honest, I'm not sure if you need to get rid of them to pass this book. But, like I said, it is what it is. no, actually, you don't need to get rid of them to pass the buck because you're given the option to get rid of them in the final reference. But either way, let's talk about the buck. The book really starts off with you leaving your outpost, and you're basically in. I get the African vibes. I think it's because they've got those depictions of tribal people that you're not really meant to do anymore because they're a bit insensitive. But yeah, you've definitely got the tribal kind of aesthetic. You're in like a tribal outpost, and you're leaving, and everyone's like, "Yeah, you go, boy," because they know, girl, obviously, they know you're on a big adventure. So they're all like wishing you good luck. You've got the guy who's watching the main gate, and he's cool, and he basically tells you, "Well, I'm not gonna say, hopefully your adventure's safe," because he knows it's not gonna be. He knows it's not gonna be. So he just says, he wishes you well. Do your best. You get what you give. And then he just sends you on your way. And that's really the adventure. They give you a brief rundown on how... I'm not sure if it's this guy or the next guy that you encounter, but you get a brief rundown on that. Basically, every single settlement you come across is friendly, and they have a tavern or an inn. And sometimes then, like, shops you can go to. Or, or attractions. And from a gameplay perspective, this makes sense, because obviously if you're playing like Dungeons and Dragons, and you're sort of just wandering through nowhere, and all the towns and villages, none of them have inns, then what you're meant to do is sleep on the streets. But yeah, it's a really nice little feature. So, without further ado, you sort of set off, and then you find yourself walking through another settlement / town / village, and this fella jumps out at you, and he's like, "Oi, if you want directions, you're going to have to pay." But if you do actually pay him, the directions are pretty sound and pretty solid. He tells you if you go up the hill, you'll meet a mine. It's dangerous. If you go down the hill, you just bump into elves, and they're quite annoying. Now, this is something I remember from 10 years ago, over 10 years ago when I read this book. The elves, I never went up through the mines back then. For some reason, I'd always go the same way. And there's loads of cool stuff down there. I prefer the mines, going up the hills, going towards the mines. That was my preferred choice when I played this one. And then I never realised how much better that choice was. But either way, his directions are pretty solid. But I think it's round about now you bump into this old guy and he gives you a riddle. This riddle is really good. Actually, if you pay attention to what's being said, it actually helps out a fair bit. But yeah, you just sort of go on your adventure then. You go up or down, I suppose. I went up past the mines. The mines were pretty cool. You got a trap with absolutely no contextual cues, so you just get wrecked by an instant game over. That was fun. Or you go the right way, and you sort of have the option of going into like a goblin, it's a green skin mine. That sounded quite racist. And you sort of do what you want to do there, and you head off. And then you really just sort of bump into like another village, just like a Nurgle village. And looking at this bad boy, I thought, oh, that's Nurgly as heck. That is really cool. I like this. Is this going to be like a Nurgle thing? But no, they've all got the plague. And if you sort of like force your way into one of the houses and interrogate them, and he's like, "Oh, bro, thanks for the handshake, but are you a healer? Because if not, we've all got the plague. You've got it now." So you're sort of like, "Oh, thanks, bro. Surely you could wear gloves or something." But alas. Personally, I didn't stay in this village not too long. I was like, oh, that's Nurgle. And I tried out. I wanted to see what I could do there. And I just sort of moved on. So then this is really where you bump into the Minimites. The Minimite is Jen. Sort of looks like Tinkerbell, if Tinkerbell was from the Avatar film. The James Cameron one. And then you sort of go to, I think it's called Britanti or something weird like that. Britanti. Yeah, it is what it is. It's meant to be like a big city, like a massive, amazing city, where apparently everyone spends at least one night there. And there's either a fountain or a wishing well. Because I read wishing well or wishing fountain, something like that. And I just thought of wishing wells. I don't know why. But there is one, you can pay gold to go in there. And if you actually got the plague from that Nurgle town, it kills you of the plague. So I thought it was really cool. You could spend the night, you could choose not to. It's up to you. You got this Minimite annoying you. And I think if you go into the tavern, there's some weirdo in there. Vaguely from memory, because I read through this book a good few times. I think there's some weirdo in the tavern that you can fight. But I avoided that. I wanted to see what happens if I didn't go in the tavern. So I avoided the tavern, kept going, right? And you're going down this weird, well, it's not a weird pathway. It's just a pathway. You're going down a pathway, and this creepy witch. I say creepy witch. I don't know if it's actually I can't remember if it's actually said that she's a witch or she's just an older woman living by herself out in the middle of nowhere with magic. She is a witch, let's be real. But she invites you in, you can go in. The Minimite is obviously quite anxious because the Minimite, as you know, is the world's #1 ball and chain. The Minimite. I don't actually know if there is an advantage for having a Minimite with you. But yeah, Jan is kicking off a boot. The witch is looking at Jan like, oh, you're annoying. And she brings you over 2 cups of tea. 2 cups of tea, I should say. And you get the option of swapping them, swapping them around. And if you do, what you're going to find out is that you've poisoned yourself. But if you don't, you poison her. Which is a bit dumb because I like tea. I'm not going to swap my tea around. Enjoy being poisoned, love. But then she actually has an antidote in her kitchen. So this encounter is actually pretty good because what you actually get is the witch will she understands that you've pulled sneaky on her, and then she just asks you, have you seen an old man in the tree? Well, not in the tree, but have you seen an old man on your journey? Now this is the old guy you encounter at the start who gives you a little bit of a riddle, gives you a page, and she's sort of really happy when you say yeah, and she asks for the page, she takes it from you, she reveals that he stole it from her and that she cast an aging spell on him. And she's like, oh, well, tell you what, should I get rid of that Minimite on your shoulder? So you get to choose yes or no, maybe. Can you repeat that question? And then she just sort of sends you on your way. So your next stop really is Torapani. It's this event. It's like a half-orc race. Half man, half orc, green skins. And they're all miserable. They're all depressed. And this sort of ends up one way. And you have to rescue the chief's daughter from some sort of monster down a hole. So I thought this was really cool. I was like, yeah, go on, let's just wreck some monsters. So I did it, and this really it eventually comes with you encountering the end boss, and then that's really it. The boss is actually a manticore. The boss is pretty tough as well. I like the boss. It's got like 10 stamina, 18 skill, or maybe 10 skill, 18 stamina. It's something nuts, and it does like 6 damage per hit. Pretty naughty. But yeah, once you defeat the Manticore, you sort of save the girl and you do a runner, you get out. That is really it, you know, you complete the story. So you come out, the chief's like, yeah bro, here's some items that you're going to need in the next few bucks. How cool is that? And then it's sort of game over. And if you're, well, for me personally, when I was reading this book, I was like, so I haven't actually completed my adventure. In fact, I've taken on a side quest to complete that side quest, and then the book's over. So it is what it is. What you're going to find out is a lot of items, a lot of encounters will return, presumably, I haven't read them, in later sorcery books, and that's pretty cool. Looking forward to that, that's going to be fun. But yeah, that's about it for the story, guys. That's about it. I didn't want to go on too much, because actually there is a lot in this story that's quite good, a lot that I haven't mentioned, like the elven path and whatnot happens down there. That's pretty cool. There's a black lotus. I'm not sure if that's meant to be like a reference to Magic the Gathering card. I don't know when that card came out and when the book was written. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't play Magic, but yeah, that's about it for stories. So let's summarize this video. Should you get the Shabutanti Hills, and I'm going to say yeah, the Sorcery series, in all honesty, for the first book in the Sorcery line, this is really good, if I'm brutally honest. The adventure, you're constantly interacting with the world, you know, the NPCs feel organic, and the writing just feels a lot better compared to the other books. With this book, it feels like you're on an adventure. With the other books, sometimes it just feels like a collectathon. Sometimes you're just very aware that they've put this obnoxious maze in there to pad out the second half of the book, looking at the wall like a firetop mountain. And yeah, this book's just straight up really, really good. It's probably up there with my favourites. You know, my favourite City of Thieves, Death Trap Dungeon, and then probably the Shabutanti Hills, to be brutally honest. You know, I was looking at this book, I was thinking, ooh, can I remember this book from when I was a child? And I could a little bit, and it's really difficult. I remember commenting on like a fighting fantasy forum saying that I completed the book my first try, and it really, really triggered some nerd. That was funny. But that's about it. I didn't really have much of a memory of this book. Jumped in, and it's really, really good. So yeah, I would totally recommend this book. Totally get it. It is, you can get the Scholastic version, you can get the Puffin, maybe the Puffin version, I don't know, it's a bit old now. But you can probably get the Wizards version if you just go to your local charity shops, if you find a second-hand bookseller, if you find an independent store, if you just go on eBay. It's up to you, really. I like eBay, but it will come down to your own personal preferences. So, I will say, yeah, totally buy this book. It is really, really good. Probably like, what, a 5 out of 5? Yeah, 5 out of 5, because I loved it and I would read it again. So that about does it for this video. You know, this is my 10th video. Well, 10th Fighting Fantasy video. If it wasn't for all the other videos I did, this would be my 10th. I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do something special for this one, but I really couldn't think about it. This week, well, the past week has been full of setbacks, so I couldn't really do anything special anyway. It is what it is ultimately, but yeah, you know. So yeah, this is my 10th video, and I'm just sort of enjoying doing the Fighting Fantasy stuff. I don't know how long I'll do it for. I want to do the whole series just because I think maybe in the future at some point somebody's going to be interested in these books and they're going to be like, oh, are there any videos? And I've sort of talked about them all. So, you know, I might do them all anyway. But yeah, that's about it from me. So I want to say thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, I suppose. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. Don't be afraid to leave a like. Don't be afraid to subscribe. And, well, just take care, innit? Take care. Hope you have a lovely week. Hope you have a lovely month. Hopefully, you just have a really lovely life. So, without further ado, take care. Goodbye.